Joining me now to discuss all of this is Pete Buttigieg. He's, of course, the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and the former Secretary of Transportation. It's great to see you. Thank you for being here.
It's good to be with you.
I just want to start. It feels like two things, many things are true, but two big things are true at the same time. I mean, Trump's popularity has been dropping for some time. That can make him desperate at times. We've seen this movie before over the last 10 years. But he also is using his power or his bully pulpit to... There was an FBI raid today in Georgia. He has his attorney general, and this is not how it's supposed to work, but it's how it's working in this administration, requesting voter rolls from Minnesota. It feels to me like these things are related, but how do you look at it?
I think that's exactly right. Two things are happening. They're related. He's getting weaker, and he's getting more dangerous. He's getting more dangerous because he's getting weaker. As he loses more and more favor and popularity among the American people, he's going to continue to try to make up for that using the machinery of government that he controls. But that's perilous for him. It's certainly perilous for the whole country. But it's perilous for him because Americans are fed up. What used to be a Trump brand has become a Trump stink. That was starting to happen last year. A lot of Democrats won some of those 2025 November races because of it. But now you see it in the numbers. You see it in the way that Republicans are, in some cases, running for cover or running away from this administration. This is something I think, in some ways, Democrats are having more trouble picturing than Republicans. Republicans are picturing life after Trump. And you see that in so many ways as they begin to put some distance between them and his administration, because they're picturing what they're going to be doing, how they're going to answer for their actions after he has exited the political stage. I think that's actually harder for Democrats to picture because we are understandably so horrified by what's happening right now.
I think you've been traveling around the country a lot. You've been doing smaller events. You've been doing larger events. And I know anecdotally I hear this, and I imagine you hear this a lot, which is people saying Donald Trump is going to do everything possible to steal our election. There's not even going to be an election. People have different iterations of that. You want people to be eyes open, but you don't want people to be afraid of participating. What do you tell people?
Yeah, we have to remember that elections are run close to home. They're run by our neighbors, often county officials, sometimes volunteers working together, and that process has a ton of integrity. Does this president respect the integrity of that process? Of course he doesn't. But let's also remember this. The ultimate backstop is the American people. Yes, we would hope it would be Congress. Certainly we look to the courts. But at the end of the day, any of those kinds of maneuvers cannot work if the American people stand unified against them. That's part of why what's happening right now is so important. The political pressure that is working in so many ways, changing outcomes, not on Election Day later on, but right now. We saw some glimmers of it with Republicans defying Trump, a handful of them, of course, but a few of them defying him on the Epstein files. We saw it in Indiana, where, to my amazement, having gone there, worked on it, held rallies to oppose the gerrymandering, I was still amazed when so many elected Republicans joined unified Democrats and said no to the direct demands of President Trump. We saw it in the vote on the tax credits for the ACA, where you had, I was just in western Wisconsin. We did a town hall in the district of Derek Van Orden, one of the MAGA congressmen who won't face his own constituents. He miraculously flipped at the very last minute and changed his vote, even though he's still for tearing down the Affordable Care Act, changed his vote to be for the tax credits. And now you're seeing it in, House and Senate members, Republicans, saying, we got to have hearings, we got to have an investigation. To me, all of this is an indication that these people know they cannot outrun the will of the people. And that ultimately will be our best defense against anything that he tries to pull as Election Day draws nearer.
This moment, I talked about a number of examples, not just subreddit groups on cats, but many others where it feels like what people have watched in Minneapolis, obviously the killing of two innocent people, but also just having people pulled from their cars, children put in ICE detention facilities, all of the video we've seen captured. It feels different to me. I mean, you have seen it break through with sports in so many different ways. Does it feel different to you?
I think so. I think something is turning in the United States of America right now. And it's because these actions aren't just wrong as viewed from a liberal or a conservative lens. They are wrong, period. And that's one of the reasons why I think there's a moment here for conservatives, for libertarians to be standing with progressives and moderates, saying that things have to change. After all, some of the things that we have seen, federal agents disarming a man and then shooting him and then lying about why. These are some of the things that come out of the fever dreams of Republican and conservative figures when they were talking about why we can't have too strong of a federal government or why the Second Amendment is so important to them. So this is, I think, an extraordinary moment for people of every different political persuasion to come together and show what it looks like to be a freedom-loving country. And also, just as human beings, to think about the family of Alex Preddy, to think about all of the families of the people who have been impacted, those who have been killed, those who have been hurt. How can you not look at a 5-year-old kid with a Spider-Man backpack, see what they were doing to him and his family, and not think to yourself, this is wrong?
I was thinking about you in the immediate aftermath of Alex Preddy's killing and the way that the administration was talking about him. I mean, this is a nurse who worked at a VA hospital. I know you probably know many people who were treated, lives saved at VA hospitals. And he was a VA nurse at one. He spent his life helping people. And Kristi Noem called him a domestic terrorist. Stephen Miller called him an assassin. I just wonder what was going through your head as you were hearing them talk about him like that.
We're talking about somebody who was a public servant, somebody who took care of veterans, and I think any of us who have been in or around an ICU, because a loved one is in there, knows what an ICU nurse does and knows just how incredibly important a role they play when people are at their most vulnerable. And that's what he was doing that day. His very last act was to come to the defense of a woman who inexplicably was being pushed to the ground even while she was retreating. He was helping other people. And, what we're seeing these federal agents do goes against everything that we expect of any kind of law enforcement, which is to protect and serve. That's the motto of law enforcement. They are supposed to be protecting people and making people safer. But when you see these kinds of images, just today, an image of a woman on her porch opening the door while her home is being swarmed by about half a dozen agents wearing more weaponry and tactical gear than we used to take with us when we were going outside the wire in Afghanistan. There's just no way to look at that and think that that could possibly be making this country a better place.
One of the things that's been striking to me, and I'm betting you, I mean, he's the vice president of the United States. He retweeted this post that, as I mentioned, Stephen Miller posted calling Alex Preddy an assassin. He's largely been silent. He posted something strange about during the Marco Rubio testimony today, where he was critical of people questioning people. But he's largely been silent on this. As people are out there observing this and so tuned in, as we've been talking about, what do you hope they take away about who the vice president is in light of that?
Well, I think the Trump administration is so far on the back foot that you're seeing two things that are very rare. Donald Trump backing down and J.D. Vance shutting up. When you see those two things happening at the same time, clearly something big is afoot. Look, he's somebody who is the vice president, someone who's repeatedly shown himself to be willing to say anything, do anything, and I think wants to be the heir to MAGA. But this is something that even he can't defend, at least not without knowing that it will undermine his chance of ever being taken seriously by anyone outside that bubble in the future. So I think it is telling that he's gone uncharacteristically silent.
Accountability is obviously a big question right now because you have these two ICE officers who are not, there's no real investigation of them at this point in time. Well, there are some in Minnesota, I should say, but not at a federal level, and there absolutely should be through the Civil Rights Office. There's also events like this. ICE is terrorizing communities across the country. Kristi Noem still has a job. Stephen Miller traveled on the plane with Trump yesterday. I could go on. What do you think accountability should look like, can look like.
Well, one of the reasons why the corruption going on in this White House is not just an academic concern is that when you have that level of corruption, you don't have accountability, and all of our lives get worse. It is astonishing that someone like Kristi Noem still has her job. I still don't understand how she still has her job after she failed to approve search and rescue teams last summer in Texas while Texans were dying in the flooding that was going on, let alone what's going on right now. Of course, ultimate accountability lies with the president, who unleashed these forces not for the purpose of keeping the peace, but for the purpose of creating chaos and deflecting from his economic failures and other problems here at home. Now, Congress is supposed to hold people accountable. We're seeing more spine than usual from congressional Republicans. We'll see how it lasts. But ultimately, it's the American people who will have to hold all of these politicians, from the president on down, accountable for their choices, accountable for endangering lives in Minneapolis, accountable for their priorities. Passing this big budget bill that went through, taking money out of health care while shoveling it into tax cuts for billionaires and massive funding increases for ICE, making it better funded than the entire rest of law enforcement. If this is really about crime, you'd think that they wouldn't make ICE bigger than the FBI itself. But that's what's going on. It has clearly harmed the American people, and the ultimate accountability for that will come from the American people.